People thought Kandi Burruss had finally reached the moment where everything, the turmoil, the rumors, the unresolved tensions, had finally been left behind. The divorce was filed, the public noise softened, and for the first time in months, there was a sense that the dust had begun to settle. Silence took over in a way that felt almost comforting, almost intentional, as if Kandi had deliberately carved out a quiet space to breathe, to heal, and to move forward without the constant hum of speculation. But silence, especially in the world of celebrity culture, rarely means peace. Silence is often a holding space, a pause before something unplanned surfaces. And in this case, it took only one remark, a single, casually delivered comment from Tiny Harris to pull everything that Kandi had tried to move past right back into the center of attention. It wasn't loud, it wasn't messy, and it wasn't dramatic on the surface, but it landed with a weight that people immediately felt, even if they couldn't yet articulate why. What created the most tension wasn't the comment itself, but the reaction that followed. Kandi Burruss, a woman who has built an entire public identity around control, composure, and judicious communication, responded with something completely unexpected. She didn't respond at all. No denial, no pushback, no side remarks, no strategic redirection, just complete, unmistakable silence. And when someone with Kandi's history, someone who has survived decades of public scrutiny without crumbling, chooses stillness instead of clarification, the audience begins questioning what nerve exactly has been touched. Because in the entertainment world, a defensive response can mean a rumor is false, but a silent one often signals that a topic is too layered, too painful, too dangerous, or too close to something that was never meant to be revisited. From the moment Tiny's remark hit the internet, fans weren't just wondering whether Tiny meant anything by it. They were asking why a comment so small ignited such immediate, intense reaction at this exact point in time, right after Kandi's marriage ended and her public narrative seemed to finally stabilize. Was this a coincidence? Or did Tiny, intentionally or unintentionally, step onto a chapter of Kandi's past that was never fully closed? In celebrity culture, timing is rarely accidental, and the timing of this moment made people pause in a way they hadn't anticipated. It wasn't chaos, it wasn't drama, it was something more unsettling, a shift in energy, quiet but unmistakable, like a room where the temperature drops even if no one touches the thermostat. The moment Tiny spoke, something around Kandi seemed to change, not in a dramatic fallout sort of way, not in a scandalous explosion of headlines, but in a subtle shift that drew attention rather than deflected it. People began leaning in, replaying clips, repeating snippets, and asking themselves why words spoken so casually carried such a heavy aftertaste. The truth is, it wasn't about what Tiny said explicitly, it was about what she implied, or rather what people felt she implied. In the entertainment industry, words rarely exist in a vacuum. Intent, tone, timing, history, all of it merges to create a subtext that audiences are trained to detect even before they consciously analyze it. Kandi, for years, has been the definition of composed under pressure. She doesn't crumble publicly, she doesn't make reckless statements, and she doesn't perform emotional vulnerability for sympathy. She is measured, strategic, and often detached in situations where others might be reactive. That's why her silence spoke volumes. Viewers immediately noticed that something about her response, or lack of one, was different from her usual approach. Instead of dismissing the narrative, instead of clarifying, instead of posting something cryptic or empowering to drown out the noise, she did nothing. And that nothingness became the loudest part of the story. People began asking the questions the silence invited. Why now? Why Tiny? Why did a seemingly harmless comment hit so deeply that Kandi opted not to address it at all? Tiny's words weren't directly accusatory. She didn't name names, she didn't point fingers, she didn't launch into any detailed story. But people familiar with long-standing celebrity subtext recognized that the comment didn't need specifics to carry weight. Implication is a powerful tool, especially when emotionally charged history exists beneath the surface. For Kandi, the timing couldn't have been more difficult. Her divorce had only recently become public, and she had been navigating that moment with a level of dignity and restraint that many people admired. No messy back and forth, no shade, no emotional unraveling online. She presented an image of someone focused on healing privately, continuing with her career, supporting her family, and rebuilding in silence. That image mattered to her brand, to her business partnerships, and to her overall reputation. Tiny's remark, whether intended or not, threatened the stability of that narrative. What made things more complicated was the reaction from the audience. Fans immediately began digging through old interviews, resurfacing past clips, analyzing interactions between Kandi and Tiny, and reinterpreting moments that once seemed harmless. Old jokes began looking sharper in hindsight. Pauses that once went unnoticed began feeling suspicious. Interactions suddenly carried new implications. This is how speculation grows, not from proof, but from retroactive interpretation. Once people believe they're seeing a pattern, they start finding clues everywhere. And Tiny Harris wasn't a distant commentator. She's part of Kandi's world, the same industry, overlapping circles, long history, shared proximity. When someone with inside access says something ambiguous, the public doesn't treat it like gossip. They treat it like a puzzle piece, not because the person has authority, but because association gives their words a different kind of credibility. People assume insiders know more than they say. Whether that assumption is fair doesn't matter once it takes hold. Behind the scenes, according to reports and whispers among industry watchers, Kandi was caught off guard. Not panicked, not frantic, but noticeably unsettled. And that reaction alone added fuel to the speculation. Because in a culture where false narratives are often crushed instantly, hesitation is read as its own kind of explanation. Viewers began scrutinizing what wasn't said just as much as what had been. Silence became a medium for interpretation. Restraint became viewed as avoidance, and avoidance became interpreted as confirmation, even if nothing had been confirmed. Meanwhile, Tiny didn't explain herself. She didn't backpedal, didn't soften her wording, didn't make any effort to shift the narrative. She stayed silent. That silence felt intentional to many people watching the situation unfold, as if she had said exactly what she wanted to say and had no plans to expand further. Ambiguity in today's media landscape is powerful. It keeps a story alive without making anyone responsible for its outcome. It leaves room for interpretation, and interpretation multiplies faster than facts. The internet split itself into factions, as it always does. Some defended Kandi fiercely, calling the entire situation irresponsible and urging people not to read into comments that weren't meant to be harmful. Others insisted these moments don't happen for no reason, not with people who share history. The divide widened quickly, and before long, the narrative stopped being about truth and shifted toward belief. Because when it comes to celebrity storytelling, belief often outweighs fact. Perception began changing rapidly. Tiny's comments didn't just introduce a new idea, they reframed old ones. Kandi's recent behavior was suddenly reinterpreted by some observers. Her calmness looked calculated rather than composed. Her silence looked heavy rather than peaceful. Even her public smiles began appearing, to some, like they were hiding something unresolved. That's the danger of ambiguity. It fills empty spaces with assumptions. As conversations grew, insiders became more cautious in their own interactions. People close to both women began choosing their words carefully, avoiding firm statements, offering only vague defenses or neutral observations. When an industry known for openness suddenly becomes careful and selective, audiences assume something is being protected. And still, there was no concrete evidence. No confirmations, no accusations laid out in detail, nothing specific to anchor the growing tension. But that didn't stop the story. It didn't even slow it down. When ambiguity and timing collide, they create momentum, and momentum becomes its own fuel. As the narrative expanded, fans stopped asking what Tiny had meant and started asking what Kandi might be hiding. That shift is crucial because it marks the moment when curiosity becomes assumption. And once that line is crossed, facts no longer matter as much as feelings. Kandi's long-held strategy of silence, a strategy that has protected her many times before, suddenly began working against her. What once seemed like strength now seemed like evasion to some. What once looked like composure now looked calculated, careful, or even fearful. The truth is, restraint comes with a cost. Stand silent doesn't mean feeling nothing. It doesn't mean being unaffected. It doesn't mean lacking a response. It means choosing to swallow reactions for the sake of long-term stability. And that choice requires emotional strength people often overlook. Tiny, meanwhile, remained steady. No escalation, no elaboration, just stillness. And in that stillness, the story continued growing without boundaries. In entertainment, implication is often more damaging than accusation. It opens the door for endless interpretation. Once those interpretations take root, controlling the narrative becomes nearly impossible. However,
it all began subtly, long before the public even had a hint of what was happening. In one resurfaced clip, Kandi confessed she always knew she wanted to be a mother, but never really dreamed of being a wife. She said it casually, almost like it was nothing. But now, fans are replaying that moment with a whole new perspective. Was it a red flag, a warning sign, or perhaps the first crack in a foundation that would one day completely collapse? Because now, after Kandi officially announced her divorce from Todd Tucker, viewers are combing through old videos, interviews, and behind-the-scenes moments that suddenly feel off, almost chilling. Moments we all overlooked before, but now seem to expose what was happening beneath the surface all along. When Kandi announced, "I filed for divorce on Friday, it's a crazy time," the internet exploded. But what she didn't say spoke louder than what she did. As fans analyzed her expression, her tone, even her body language, questions began swirling. Was this sudden? Was she hurting? Or was this the moment she had been preparing for in silence? Even astrologers jumped into the mix, pointing out her Taurus sun and Capricorn moon, calling her grounded, calculated, structured, maybe even stubborn. And if you take a closer look, it's hard not to wonder, was this divorce something she emotionally checked out of long ago, even if the public never saw it coming? But let's rewind, because the storm didn't start here. Over the years, fans noticed unsettling moments in their relationship. Clips of Todd saying he felt controlled, moments where he hinted that he couldn't go out without permission, Kandi's tone when she said, "My house, my rules," Todd responding, "You're tying me down everywhere." At the time, people shrugged it off as reality TV dramatics. But now those scenes feel like hidden messages disguised as entertainment. Behind the glamorous smiles and red carpets, this marriage was unraveling thread by thread. And when Kandi finally opened up, she admitted the truth wasn't easy. She said, "Sometimes you're cool, you're moving, mixing, hanging out with friends, but sometimes you have your moments of sadness." But the bombshell wasn't in the sadness, it was in the silence. The kind of silence you keep when you're trying not to reveal how messy things really are. But trust me, this was just scratching the surface, because what came next sent shockwaves through the entire entertainment world. For over a decade, Todd and Kandi presented a unified front, but insiders now claim the marriage was nothing like what fans believed. Imagine being in a relationship where every move you make is monitored, where your independence slowly shrinks, where even hanging out with friends becomes a privilege rather than a right. According to leaked messages circulating online, Todd was allegedly living under rules so strict that he had to request permission just to see the people closest to him. One message supposedly read, "You don't go out without me." Another said, "You're either with me or against me." And the more people dig into these leaked conversations, the more disturbing the picture becomes. Then came the prenup, one that fans now label the coldest prenup in Hollywood. And let me tell you, it's not hard to see why. According to those who've seen it, the prenup required Todd to pack up and leave their home within 30 days if things ended. No spousal support, no financial cushion, no claim to anything Kandi built, not even a grace period. Just a clean and brutal cut. And while some say it was smart business, Others argue it was a move rooted in mistrust, control, and power. But if you thought the prenup was the worst, oh, you're not ready. Because what happened next sent this already fiery situation straight into explosive territory. Rumors began swirling that Todd wasn't exactly the innocent victim fans assumed. Sources claimed he had been seen out in Atlanta with other women. Names were whispered, DMs leaked, and then came claims of an affair with someone inside their own circle, a betrayal that cut deeper than anything before. One message leaked from Todd's phone supposedly said, "She doesn't trust me. She's watching my every move. I can't do this anymore." The reply was, "Be careful. One slip and everything falls apart." And fall apart it did. One night, things reached a boiling point inside their Atlanta mansion. A confrontation so heated, so intense, the neighbors reportedly heard shouting for hours. Kandi accused Todd of lying, cheating, disrespecting their vows. Todd fired back, unleashing years of resentment he had bottled up. According to insiders, Todd screamed, "I'm not your puppet. I'm done living in your shadow." For the first time, the world saw the cracks in the empire. And they weren't small cracks, they were earthquakes. And then boom, the biggest twist yet. Todd had been secretly planning his exit. While Kandi tightened her grip, Todd allegedly drafted a separate agreement, a hidden deal meant to protect himself from the prenup and give him leverage. When Kandi found out, she reportedly lost it. Friends claim she threatened to expose every dirty detail she had on him. She allegedly hired private investigators, dug into his past, traced his movements, even searched for dirt she could use as ammunition. But Todd wasn't scared. He was done, and he was ready to strike back. That's when things went public. At a star-studded Atlanta event, Todd confronted Kandi on stage, in front of cameras, in front of fans, in front of the industry. Eyewitnesses say his voice shook with anger as he declared, "You don't own me." And Kandi, with an icy tone, snapped back, "You were never more than a pawn."
Phones came out, clips went viral, memes exploded, and suddenly, everyone had an opinion. Was Kandi a cold mastermind manipulating her husband? Or was Todd the villain trying to smear her name? Days later, another twist surfaced. Todd had allegedly met with rivals of Kandi's, people she clashed with in the industry, possibly planning alliances for his post-divorce comeback. Meanwhile, leaked texts suggested Kandi was hiding secrets of her own, secrets tied to her empire, her business deals, and her closest relationships. And then came the anonymous insider, the one who claimed Kandi didn't rise to the top through talent alone, but through manipulation, intimidation, and silence. Suddenly, fans who adored her were left questioning everything. The producer who tweeted, "When the queen shows her claws, no one is safe," was he talking about Kandi? The internet erupted. The hashtag Kandi versus Todd dominated every platform. Fans took sides like it was a war. Some defended Kandi fiercely, saying she built her empire alone and Todd was trying to tear it down. Others claimed Todd was a man trying to reclaim his freedom from a controlling marriage. And right when you thought it couldn't get any worse, it did. A video leaked online, a late-night argument, voices trembling with rage. Kandi shouting, "You don't own me." Todd yelling back, "You're not my keeper." The raw emotion shook fans to their core. Then, another twist. Leaked DMs revealed that a mysterious third party, someone close to Kandi, may have been manipulating both sides behind the scenes. Someone who benefited from the chaos. Someone allegedly pushed Kandi to enforce the harsh prenup and whispered doubts into Todd's ear. Someone Todd confronted in a leaked message that read, "You told me you were my friend. All you did was push us over the edge." The reply was chilling. Sometimes you have to break the pieces to build a stronger empire. Who was this puppet master? A friend? A relative? A business partner? Or someone who stood to gain everything from their downfall? Meanwhile, Todd was seen meeting with a major entertainment mogul, rumored to be creating a tell-all documentary exposing the dark side of reality TV And Kandi's marriage was allegedly a central storyline. And just when fans started panicking, Kandi dropped a cryptic statement. "I'm ready to close this chapter, but some stories aren't ready to be told yet." That last line, "yet," sent the internet into meltdown. And so the story settled into a strange pause, not resolved, not intensified, but suspended. A holding pattern where every movement from either woman, every post, every appearance, every silence became part of the analysis. At this point, the absence of conclusion became the conclusion. People filled the gaps because humans crave coherence. They want stories to make sense even when the facts are incomplete. Which brings us to the present moment, a moment where nothing is confirmed, nothing is denied, and yet everything feels shifted. A moment where a single remark has evolved into a debate about image, intent, power, and the ways silence can shape a narrative just as forcefully as words. So now the question becomes yours. Did Tiny Harris make an innocent remark that the public twisted out of context? Or did she speak with deliberate precision, knowing her words would land exactly the way they did? Was Kandi Burruss shaken because the comments were unfair, or because they reopened conversations she hoped would never resurface? And most importantly, in a world where perception often outweighs truth, how much power should implication truly hold? If this breakdown made you slow down, think twice, and look beyond the surface, then you already understand what this channel is about. We don't chase shock. We analyze moments. We sit with discomfort. We explore nuance. And we understand that not every story is loud and not every truth arrives complete. Sometimes it comes as a remark, a pause, a silence, waiting to see who's really paying attention.